free to log off. We've done that with other ones. If everyone can please mute the microphones. Tonight will be a wee bit different than other nights. There will be feedback on it, and Johnny will ask you just to type in your name if you have a question, and just type in your name and open up your microphone and you can ask the question, okay? So just type in your name into the chat box first. I think that's more or less it. I'm going to hand over to Johnny, and Johnny will get going. Just like to introduce Johnny. Johnny is a GDA in Kildare. As we know, your clubs in Loud here all have a GDA is assigned to them. So Johnny is working in Kildare, and I'm sure he'll a wee bit more about that as he goes along. Okay, Johnny?
Yeah, thanks very much, Shane. Welcome. I suppose the first thing to say is delighted to be asked. Shane asked me to do this a few weeks ago, and delighted to be asked to do it. And this programme, I suppose, was put together by myself and Sean Gannon in Carlow. We were asked by Leicester Council maybe to put something together on resilience and showing resilience and how to build resilience in a player, which sounded lovely and we were all excited about it. But then when you actually sit down to try to do it, it's a huge area. And the one thing we did find is there's no blueprint. I'd love to be able to go and say, look, I'm going to send you on these slides and that'll sort it out and you'll have absolutely brilliant, resilient players. As most of you know, it doesn't work that way. So look, we'll talk through it. As Shane said, please feel free to come in and out. I know there's lots of people on the webinar, lots of people, lots of different opinions, lots of different views, and please do come in as you see fit if you have anything to contribute, and that's what will make the night a good success if people are interactive. Just to, I suppose, introduce myself. I'm a GDA in Kildare for the last 5 or 6 years, and I'm heavily involved with the development squads in Kildare. I sort of coordinate all them with the help of volunteer coaches and other GDAs within Kildare GDA. So I suppose we're trying to build resilience in a lot of Kildare players through the underage, which it can be challenging in itself. So that's my job and that's my role, and it's a role up to this coronavirus. I was setting up for the year and getting ready and all squads ready to go, but unfortunately we find ourselves in the situation we're in, and we'll get through this. Yeah, just I suppose the jersey behind me, I was coming out the door and I grabbed that just to I said I'd hang it up in the office here in Hawkfield. That was the first time I ever played senior football championship for Kildare. We played against Louth back in 2000, and I was marking the great Aaron Hoy, and I knew well when he shook my hand, he nearly shook my body as well. He was a strong man, and I spent the next 40 odd minutes trying to run away from him, and he was setting up attacks and teaching me a lesson on inter-county football before Miko called me ashore to say I've seen enough of you for one day. So that's the jersey, number 6 jersey, and I'm very proud to have it. And I met Aaron along the way, and we always have good stories to share. So maybe we'll start maybe on the first slide there. Shane, you're on the controls, so you might just throw up share the screen, and we'll get through this. But again, if any questions or anything like that, please feel free to come on and have a chat. Okay. Okay. So the tourist, a lot of you are probably aware of the tourist program. It's developed by Leinster Council, and it's all about, I'm sure you've seen it in your clubs, and it's developing the player. And I suppose a big part of developing the player is resilience and that ability to bounce back after adversity. So you flick on there, Shane. Yeah. Okay, so I suppose building resilience in a player is a very complicated thing to do, and as I said, there's so many factors, even from a coaching point of view, that are outside your control, and we'll talk about that as well. But just some of the stuff we'd like you to go away with, and obviously I think Shane will share a lot of the stuff we've talked about tonight, so you can go back over, because there's lots of stuff coming at people, and sometimes it's hard to retain everything. So we'll use that opportunity to maybe look back on things. But we'll talk a bit about the Torres principles. As I said, some of you will be very familiar with them, others might not be as familiar, and we'll explain that as we go along. Define, identify, and measure resilience in a player. Again, a difficult enough challenge, but we've done a stab on it, and I know well with the amount of people in here, everyone will have different opinions on that. How do you measure it? How do you identify what is resilience? And there's loads of examples. If you really go down, you don't have to leave your club. You could be talking about your under 10 team. There's some people have shown resilience in naturally without having to be shown it, or without having you to take control of that situation. To just maybe it's the family they live in. We've often seen maybe the youngest of a house of 5 or 6 boys. He'll build resilience fairly quick if he wants to survive, and all that comes natural. So we'll talk a bit about that. We'll list ways to build resilience using practical examples, and describe the rocky road to success. Okay, and I'm very much conscious of this is in an ideal world. We'll talk about scenarios, and it's grand to sit here in a lovely Monday evening. But when you're on the side of the pitch, maybe in a minor semi-final or an under 16 first round of the championship against your neighbours that you want to beat by 100 points every time you go out to play them, it's a different thing. But we'll talk about that, and what's important to you as a coach, what you're trying to do, where you see that roadway coming from, and with the player, totally about the player in mind, and not always results. Even though there's nothing wrong with winning an under 16 championship, or there's nothing wrong with getting one up on the rivalry for a bit of bragging rights. That's part and parcel of development and developing players and developing cultures within the club, and we can't forget about them. But again, this will come on from the point of view of just building the player for that long-term road to success. And sometimes people come in, boys and girls come in, and that road is smooth sailing until you get to a certain age, and maybe not having built that resilience, and we'll talk about examples of that. Maybe then you struggle to find a way to get over that obstacle, or that maybe period where things aren't going your way. Okay, so that's what we're trying to look at throughout the course. All right, Shane. Okay, so we just talked about the principles, the Torres principle. Torres is the Irish for journey, and I suppose the journey most kids nowadays start with the nursery. So you could be, depending on your involvement within the GA, but you're talking about 5, 6 years of age. Most people will go down to the nursery, or at least someone comes into the school to take the junior infants, and that's the start of your journey. And a bit like the school, we don't start, you don't throw the first day you come into school, you're not throwing a Dickens novel to say read that. You start very, very basic. It's A for apple, B for ball, or this Jolly Phonics is the new way of doing it. I've learned lately with my own kids. So you learn. It's very, very slow, but there is ways that we can introduce kids to build resilience at an early age. So that journey starts very early, and depending on lots of different things that come in, that journey, that road can be veered at any stage, whether it's injury, whether Shamrock Rovers decide, or Dundalk decide that you have prospects in soccer, or someone else, you fall out with a manager or whatever, and you might step off that road and you might come back in at a later stage. But that is the journey, and I suppose from what we're trying to do and what the Leinster Council are trying to do, that we make that journey testing and challenging. So all players should be challenged, and that can be difficult because particularly at young ages, you might have an opportunity, someone has developed earlier, and you're trying to keep maybe one young boy or girl at 8 years of age is struggling to kick the ball, and you've another lad at 8 wants to practice freeze with his left foot or his weak foot off the ground, and you're saying, how am I supposed to coach both of these in the 1 hour? So that can be challenging, and how do I test and challenge them players? Because we've all examples of a player that was big and strong all the way through till he got to 15 or 16, and then when put him in the middle of the field, tell him to run through everyone, and we feel happy about ourselves, even though we've gone away from that as such now with education, coach education. But that would have been, with loads of examples of different players within your own club that, were that big, strong player, put him in the middle, everyone else get out of his way, and we win the match. And, he hasn't been tested or challenged along the way, and ultimately, when they are tested and challenged, sometimes they fall by the wayside. So that's where we need to challenge and test all the players. Understanding that the player is the centre of the game. It resembles a game based. Okay, all players involved all of the time. Again, you know, can be difficult depending on the scenario. But again, it comes down to you as a coach. You know, is that strong with you? You know, you'll have players at different stages. You're playing to fail at the semi-final, and it's neck and neck. Are you willing to put the guy that's maybe struggling? His peers know he's struggling. Players know he's struggling. Are we willing to be able to say, I'm here for this player's long-term development, and it might mean we lose the game. Am I strong enough to throw that player in at half-time? And that is, it's very, as I say, it's very easy here on a Monday evening to say, oh, definitely I do that, you know, but in that pressure situation, are we? So we want to get all players involved all of the time. And lots of factors come into that as well. I mean, you know, there has to be commitment by the players and all that sort of thing, but we're trying to get as many players involved all the time, and should be an enjoyable, developmental, appropriate and holistic GA experience. And again, I'm 42 years of age. I'm still trying to put on a pair of boots for one reason, and the main reason is I enjoy it. I enjoy the camaraderie, I enjoy the banter in the club, I enjoy going for a pint after one of the matches, even when we're beaten, if it's only to give out. The enjoyment is still there. And we can never, sometimes we feel that's great until the competition kicks in and we have to get all serious. And we do, but we cannot lose sight of the fact at any age that this should be enjoyable. And if we're as coaches, you know, go and after a training session or after a match say that we tick those boxes, and we might have only ticked 4 of them, we might only tick 3 of them, but if we can try to tick as many of them along the way, you're doing a great job. Okay, so that's the Torres principles. Okay, so again, I know I'm flying through this, but again, look, at any stage, come in, just type your name in the chat box, and Shane will bring you in, and we'll have a chat. So the American Psychological Association defines resilience as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or even significant resources of stress. Okay, so how do we react when things aren't going our way? That's basically what we do. And can we, as coaches, develop that? Can we see it where it's lacking? Can we do something about it at an early age that we can build them for that rocky road ahead? Because 99.9% of the time, it's going to be rocky. A child or a teen or an adolescent is going to come in and they're going to throw the bag in the corner and I'm saying, I'm not going anymore. Shane Lennon didn't give me a run, or Shane Lennon didn't pick me. I'm not going anymore. That is going to happen the vast majority of it. Happened to me, and I'm glad my dad said, here, do you know what, life's tough, throw that bag and back you go. And can we as coaches help them along the way? And we'll discuss some of that. Okay, so the benefits of a resilient player, okay? I'll let them fly in there. So the adaptability, they have coping skills, they welcome challenging setbacks, provide opportunity, because they provide opportunity for growth. Now, we can say a lot of us wouldn't welcome them, but we can learn from them, okay? So we realise that the strength of the team is the players, and the strength of the players is the team. Finding difficulty is nothing to be ashamed of. It creates an environment where we can flourish. Dealing with trauma, tragedy, threats, and stress. Okay, so they can deal with them in an environment where you don't have time to think. They'll find a way out. They'll find a way to succeed. And we realise that the strength of the product, strength is the product of struggle, ability to adapt to struggle. You know, and again, we often hear there was an old guy in our club, and he'd often say, we've too many players that if you're 10 points up, they kick you another 10, and if you're a point down, you wouldn't know whether they turned up to the match. And that's, I suppose, a good analogy of what we're trying to do. We're trying to look for players that, when things are going wrong, for the team or for an individual, have the coping skills. Have we helped them along the way? Have we provided that strength along the way? As the picture states, when we've tarmacked over the seed, has it found a way? Has it found a crack to grow and flourish? Okay, so they're the benefits of a resilient player. Okay, so maybe this just if we were to talk about what does a resilient player look like, okay, and we'll give you maybe some examples, but maybe if you want just quickly maybe type in a word or a phrase in the chat box. I can see the chat box here, so just maybe one word or something that you feel what a resilient player looks like. So maybe just give me 4 or 5 there. Anybody just type in a few there. I can see. Okay, Paul O'Brien, yeah, bounce back ability. Okay, Paddy Kieran's never gives up. Absolutely, yeah. Determined, yeah. Armour plated by Brendan, yeah. Really strong. Okay, so there's some really good ones. You have a good idea of what you're looking for. Okay, we flick on there. So, yeah, Connor says it's just a tough player, can overcome a struggle. Okay, that's Vincent. Okay, if we flick on, well done, lads. Thanks for that. So we've a good idea of what a resilient player looks like. Okay, so what do we expect and what do we expect? Okay, so they're committed. They can cope with pressure. Okay, so again, how many lads we can think of that the bigger the occasion, the bigger the pressure, they perform every time. Then we've other lads that, again, when things are going well, they'll really prosper. But when the pressure's on, they find it hard. To cope. And maybe if they were honest and went back through their career, they probably weren't challenged enough to try overcome that. Okay, so they can cope with the pressure. They're always planning and they're organised. Okay, good organisation. Their practice is quality. Okay, so again, maybe if you're looking at a free taker, is it a case of I went down to the field, kicked a few, a few went over, a few didn't, came back, I got a bit done. A quality practice would be, well, I'm going to kick 10. How many did I get? You log it. I'm kicking better today. I've enough done. You're organised and you just don't go out and are nilly-willy about your practices. Is a good quality. And then when you're in that situation, first round of a championship, time nearly up, you've gone through your whole build up to taking that free. You've always done it. It's no different now than when you've been practicing. So that quality was always there, and you pop over and say, God, he had nerves of steel, but he's done it 100 times in his career, or in the pitch at the back of his house. He's done it over and over, and it makes it look easy when the pressure's on. So the quality practice is definitely important. Realistic performance evaluation, so they know where they're at. It's realistic, and again, they're always trying to raise the crossbar for themselves and their own of their own expectations. But they do have a performance realistic. They're not saying, well, do you know what, I want to kick 100 points today. They know, well, I'm chipping in with 1 or 2. Can I bring that to 4? Can I set up 2 more? Can I get 2 blocks in? So they're realistic about where they are and setting goals. Okay, so some of the behaviours, and we'll fly through these because I'm definitely conscious of time. So they never give up, as we had in the chat box for someone came in with. They have strong sense of self-belief, which is important. And I suppose the balance is that confidence in their own ability as opposed to cockiness. And one is brilliant and the other can bring you down. So there is that self-belief, and for me that self-belief comes back probably with the quality practice, and is linked with that because they know they've done it over and over again, and if they've missed, they go back to use the Jim Gavin phrase, they believe in the process and in their own ability, and they'll back themselves because they know they've done it and they have that self-belief. But that comes from hours and hours of practice. Okay, the problem solve to overcome setbacks. Again, identifying in match time, in real time, this is not working. What can I do to try help this? And that can be very, very difficult thing to do because there's a game, particularly a high pressure game, there's hundreds of different things, and when you sit down and analyze it afterwards, you say, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? But over time you can build that and say, look, I'm not having a good game, and I'm in playing corner forward. Can I make space for Shane Lennon, who's in full forward? that he's on top of his game. Can I bring him more into the game? So you're overcoming problems, trying to find solutions, and that might mean, you're not having a good game, or you're not at the position you want to be, but you've seen a solution, and you've come up with trying to better the team. So yeah, they're open to change. Again, we'll talk a little bit about more of that in the next slide. They understand their strengths and they know their weaknesses. Again, a massive thing. How many times we've seen lads coming in shooting from ridiculous positions when they know maybe it's not their strength, and they know then, well, look, if I slip that ball to Shane Lennon, he's a 80% chance of putting it over the bar. I know what he's good at, I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at, so I let him do what he's good at, and that can be very difficult. And I know there's people on the call that say, Jesus, if I could only get some of my players, even at intercounty level, to realise that it's not saying that you're straight through on goal and you're 14 yards out and you can't have a go. It's not that, but it's playing the percentages. Okay, knowing what I'm strong at, knowing what I'm not strong at, and being able to play my game accordingly. Okay, they set goals and work towards them. Again, very important, and they're consistent. That's a big thing. They're consistent in their preparation, they're consistent in their attitude, they're consistent in their goal setting, they're consistent in their work rate, and all those things build resilience. And they'll be the first to put their hand up and say, you know what, and pardon the language, I was shit today, but I can guarantee you I'll have the consistency to be back here Tuesday night, and I'll put the head down and I'll work hard again. And I'm a firm believer that those players will bring you success eventually. No blame game, I'll be consistent. Okay? And so that's what we're looking for there, the behaviours. Okay, apologies now for bringing a Mead man into it. I was sort of looking through it earlier on. I said, Jenny, maybe a Mead man's not the best lad to be introducing to a loud audience. But anyway, when we picked one, we picked a good one. Okay, so measuring resilience in the player. So we can do a SWOT analysis, our strengths, our weaknesses, opportunities and threats, self-assessment, which we have to distinguish between being subjective and objective. So, everyone can sit down and look at a game and say, and I'm using Shane as the guinea pig here, I hope you don't mind, Shane, but I might say Shane had a great game, you might say, he was only okay, and that's all subjective. But if I can come and say, well, look, he covered, he worked hard because he covered 10k, he was on the move, I can say that he got the ball, 15 times, I can say he's kicked 3 points, then I know that's objective and they're factual information I'm giving them. So measurement in that situation can be very beneficial. Nobody can argue with that. You can argue, and we can argue all day whether Shane had a good game or not. But those being objective, having those facts and figures to be able to go to Shane and say, look at, whether that's video analysis, whether it's a stats sheet, whether it's being able to show him a couple of clips where you didn't work hard, where you could had an opportunity to lay it off, or you had an opportunity to shoot. So that self-assessment is very beneficial to try building that resilience in the player. And in saying that the player has to be responsive, has to be adaptable to say, well, I'm taking this on board and I'm going to work hard on it. And my last word leaving the conversation is not going to be but. It's going to be, okay, I take it on board. So player profiling. Okay, so translate onto the pitch. So again, and this is something we could talk a lot more about, and some of you might have seen it, but again, there's a resource there to say the player fills out to see where they feel they're at, their strengths, their weaknesses. Then as a coach, you can fill them out, and then you discuss between them both. So they rate themselves and where they think they're at. You get a good idea of where they're thinking, and then you have an open and honest discussion with them to say, well, look, you're thinking your fitness level is 9 out of 10. I'm sorry to disappoint you now, but you're only a 5 out of 10. And then all of a sudden you have a better idea of what way that player's thinking. So that can definitely help to when you're measuring. So again, theory versus practicals. Just take off this. So engineering situations to facilitate growth. So again, we'll maybe talk about it later on, but someone might come in and say, oh well, look at, I've seen it particularly in development squads. You bring in a load of lads, and the parents might say, "Oh, he's," I'd look for, say, when they come in for maybe a trial game, or what's their preferred position, and people would come in and left half back, or he doesn't play well right cornerback, but he plays great left cornerback. And to me, I say to young lads when they come in, you're not here as a back, you're not a midfielder, you're not a forward, you're a footballer, and you've got to be able to do all those. If you're a cornerback, you have to be able to kick accurately. No different than you're a corner forward. If you're a cornerback, you have to be able to tackle. No different than a corner forward. You have to be able to get out in front of your man in a cornerback. No different than a corner forward. And we can get sometimes, and I know as we get on, we might develop and enjoy playing a bit. But for us as coaches, we want to try engineer a situation where, I know we'll win this match if we play Shane midfield. But you know what? He's great going forward. He's not great going back. I'm engineering a situation now. I'm going to play him full back tonight, and you might have parents going mad at you, but you can see the long-term benefit of working Shane hard now at 14 to know that he'll end up a really good midfielder, getting forward and getting back for the club when he gets to senior. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do in that situation. Okay, so we're just going to have a little look at this video. It's something I suppose a lot of you might have seen. I know I wouldn't be a big basketball fan, but I'm glued to Michael Jordan and The Last Dance. So we'll just have a quick look at this.
I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed.
Johnny, you're muted there.
Apologies, sorry to go back on that. I say, the video, some of us would have seen it, some of us would have seen that quote on Michael Jordan, and I say I'm not a big basketball supporter by any stretch, but I'm glued to The Last Dance, and again, resilience was a big thing for Michael Jordan. He's worked so hard at his game, and when you look at that documentary on Netflix, you see why he was the best. He had the talent, but it was dwarfed by his work ethic and his ability to bounce back and showing his resilience. So just said I'd throw that video in. So we're just going to have a quick look at a couple of scenarios, and again, if anyone just feels they want to just jump in here and throw a comment on it, we'll have a quick chat about it. So how do we deal in these situations? So your star player is instructed to go into full forward in the minor county semi-final. He shouts back, maybe a little bit of abuse at the sideline, and reluctantly, slowly goes in, head down, body language is not good. What do you as a coach do? Does anyone want to try throw a bit of, open your mic there and come in maybe, and we'll have a little bit of a chat about it. Don't be shy. No.
Hiya, John.
Yeah, hi.
How's things?
Good.
Me, I'd personally take him off.
Okay.
Shout it back to
Very good.
That'd be my fault. Because without discipline, I think you've no team. So I'd personally take him off if he shouted back at the line.
Yeah. I'd be probably a little bit.
The head down wouldn't worry as much. You'd have to encourage him to get into the game or maybe move in position, but you couldn't let them talk back to you, no matter what age, whether it be under 16, under 18, or senior level. And that's brought into the rest of the team, and the rest of the team look at a star player shouting back at the line. For me, it doesn't set a good discipline example.
Yeah, that's a fair point. It's very hard to argue with that. Anyone maybe do something different? Anyone else want to? I'd have no argument. I'd have no argument. I didn't catch that man's name, but I have no argument with that last contributor. Would anyone try a different
Maybe go onto the field and have a word with them and try and explain what you're trying to do. Maybe coach me a little bit better that way.
Yeah, Oliver. That's Oliver. It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Oliver. That's. There's nothing wrong with that either. Yeah, I suppose there's a load of factors come in and into this scenario. I suppose you want to know what's important to you as a coach, and if it is important to you as a coach, you've probably come up and the players know maybe before a county semi-final what's tolerated and what's not tolerated, and that doesn't have to be in a dogmatic manner by any stretch, but certainly, again, it comes down to as well what constitutes a star. So I mean, it might be technically good at this particular stage in his development, and sometimes the problem can be is maybe you haven't been in this situation before and you're trying to balance what's best for the development of the team to get to a county final. What would that do for underage? And you're trying to balance that as opposed to saying, this player, look, if we don't deal with this now, what's he going to be like, as we go on? We need him, there's no doubt about it, and we need him to develop in, but someone has to step in and say, do you know what, this is not the way we do it, you got to learn here. And so I don't think there's a right and a wrong. Certainly it is something that does happen, but again, you have to be strong, and you have to, where I think people sometimes fail is they'll make a change or whatever that way to take it on, but they don't sit down and analyse it out and explain to the player. They might wait till, that John Doyle I tell you one thing, that lad needs a kick in the back, and we might talk about it when we go home, we might give out about it, and you'll meet someone was at the match tomorrow and he'll give out about it, but we don't actually sit down and say, right, John, here's why I took you off, or here's what I saw, and here's what your teammates saw, and you don't realise how much of an influence you have on the team. And if you don't learn that, there's not going to be an opportunity for you in this team. So there's loads of different ways, but we have to have that conversation, because we're not doing the team any good and we're not doing that player any good. But it's something that just to be aware of. And we have a couple of scenarios. If we flick on again, we might just do one more. I know I have three here. Okay, so again, star player at under 16s has an attendance record of 25% at training. Okay, first round of championship is coming up on Saturday. Yeah, what do we do? Okay, if anyone else or the same people want to come back in, it's a tricky one. Geez, we need him now, midfield, and they have a big midfielder on Sunday. If he does nothing now, or on Saturday, if he does nothing, only does a man-marking job on him, I tell you, we'll win this game, and we haven't won it. This is a team that could develop, and I tell you, we've 8 or 9 of this team could go on and play a senior championship. If we're beaten, we're knocked out.
I don't think he should be played. He shouldn't get all the game anyway.
Shouldn't get all the game.
It sends the wrong message to all the other teammates that maybe, practice and trained all year. I know it's first round of championship and you have a win and all that, but it's what the other team will think of it as well. You don't have to turn up the train to get a game. That's my personal opinion on it anyway.
Yeah. Again, very, very difficult to argue against that. Anyone else have anything?
John, I think if you're gonna play him at all, you might as well start him. No point in having principles and then bringing him on.
Yeah, that's Fergus. Yeah, and Fergus. Yeah. If we're honest about it, how many times have we seen that? Yeah. Probably every time. If there's a discipline matter until we need him, and then all of a sudden his stock level goes up in his own head. Sure, I'll be on as soon as first sign of trouble. And again, we've probably counterproductive of what we tried to do in the first place is build that understanding and that resilience of, if I want to be part of a team, I need to understand that it's not just a case of turning up match day. It's a case of I understand that I'm an important cog in the wheel of this team, and yeah, everyone's not going to have 100%, but if what message are we trying to send to the rest of the team? So again, if you're going to play him at any stage, do you throw him in and then maybe decide, what, now is the time you're going to come off, even though the game's in the melting pot, he might have kicked 2 or 3 points. Does he get more of an understanding, or is there a much bigger lesson for him to be learned in that situation, which probably is. But again, it's trying to be aware of I always think you have to, whatever about dealing with the player, you have to realise that there's another if you have a panel of 25, there's another 24 sets of eyes looking to see exactly what you're doing, and you might say nothing, but that message is landing on their shoulders as well. So again, it's you're trying to build that, but again, it's that conversation you have with them. So there's loads of different scenarios in that.
Hello, Johnny. I suppose it's setting your stall at the start, letting them know there's no I in team. You know, like if he wants to do well in that team or earn respect, he has to be the servant to the team, no matter like how much talent he has. Yeah,
absolutely, Vincent. Yeah, I agree 100%. And it can be difficult, as I say, in certain situations. You can be caught, and it's been strong enough to realise. And for me, and again, everyone has different opinions, and it's not. But for me, my job is to get all these players, or as many of them as possible, from 16 to 18, and then if I travel to 18 with them, to get them to 21. I can see the long-term picture. And I don't want them to be saying about Shane Lennon, well, he at 16, he was desperate, brilliant player, but desperate to train. He would never train. And now here he is playing senior football, and they're saying the same thing. We've probably failed as coaches, if that's the, and we have to try to get him to learn that this is the way the club is, and being part of the club. And maybe the penny will never drop, but we have to challenge him, and back to where we have to test and challenge, back to our tourist principles. We have to test him and have to challenge him.
Johnny, just coming in there, Shane here. Just Yvonne, just a message there saying he should be a sub. Very unfair to other players if he starts.
Yeah.
Another person have set very clear, consistent expectations at the start of the season. So and Anthony Courtney, who works with us there as a GDA, just said he could have problems at home, which doesn't allow him to train. So that could be, you have them issues as well.
Yeah, and I suppose that's about getting to know your players as well. But you'd like to think, if that was at 65%, if there was problems getting to training, well, you'd say, well, we might be able to make an arrangement, his both parents working or whatever the situation. But again, I'd be if someone wants to get there, we'll make sure somebody lives close to him, that throw him in the car and bring him with him. So knowing that at an early stage, we'll work our way around with it. So you have to know your player, absolutely. But it is, I think, as I think as Vincent said earlier, and that Paddy Cairn said, it's setting out at the start of the year, not in a regimental way, because at the end of the day, lads want to enjoy it, and if you're a drill sergeant, you're not going to enjoy it. But it's saying, look, do we agree? Let's have this conversation at the start here. We want to do the best we can here. It doesn't mean we're going to win every game, but let's be the best we can be, and see where that can take them, and make them take control of it. Okay, and we might flick through the last one because it's only another scenario. I'm conscious of the time, so we might just skip through that one, Shane. The last, we'll fly off that. Okay, so again, this is another, I suppose, linking up with what our job as coaches. So this is Johan Cruyff, who's very famous player, manager and coach. So I let all youth teams play the same way, like the first team. I always put the emphasis on learning. Sometimes I had suspicion that the youth coach were more concerned with winning. They cared about their own reputation. I cared about the interest of the club. When a player with talent couldn't defend, I put him in defence so he could learn. But that could cost a point or a win. I don't care. I'm too busy developing the player, which is exactly what we're trying to do. But it's not always easy. It's not always easy, and we will fail. I fail myself, and I'd be kicking myself going away from games. Why did I do that? I said to myself I wasn't going to do it, but maybe the pressure comes on. You say, "Geez, I'll throw this lad in now. He might get me a point, or he might get a win." And on that day he might, but long term he hasn't learned. The team hasn't learned, and I think he lets you down eventually. So it's knowing what is my job. What am I here to do? I'm here to coach, and coaching is about getting the benefit out of players, letting them reach their potential, letting them understand that, you know, and you're teaching them life skills. You know, things are tough, but you've got to learn to deal with them. And I'm going to give you scenarios where you're not going to be happy, and you're going to give out about me, and you're going to go home and give out to your father about me. But I want you to come back and embrace those and learn from them. And that's what Johan Cruyff is trying to say.
Johnny, just something there. Damien just kind of, conversation should have taken place with the player long in advance to give them the opportunity to improve attendance. I wonder, would that be something you'd do, Johnny, maybe with a club's scenario?
Absolutely, yeah. And again, it's coming back to the subjective and the objective. Very important, simple thing. Because if you're having an argument with a player about, or a disagreement with a player about your attendance is poor over the last few months, and he says, well, no, was that? Until you can say, well, look, at Shane has taken all the attendance rate, here's attendance, and you weren't there. But if I am not equipped with that, I'm looking at, well, Jesus, February, was he here in February? Maybe I missed that. I don't know, I can't remember. So then it becomes a lot weakened argument on your behalf. So I agree with Damien. Conversation should be had well in advance and say, look, we talked about this at the start of the year. Your attendance is poor. Is there a reason? And again, as Anthony pointed out, he might say, you know what, I'm struggling to get to training. And we're sitting there waiting until my dad comes home. And at least then you can say, okay, I'll talk to Shane's man and dad, and maybe they can pick you up. And your dad can collect you and Shane on the way home. And that could be out. But absolutely, it's knowing your players, having those conversations, and putting the ball back in their court to say, well, look, I gave you a solution. You know, you didn't take it. You made the decision, not me. And I think that is very important. Okay. Okay, so how can coaches build resilience? Okay, so I think there's a few to fly in there. Okay. So again, we've probably talked about it. You know, when we're coaching, we test, we tweak, we challenge them. Okay, so you know, a poor defender, we're going to play a game, we're going to have 9 forwards versus 6 backs. Okay, so that's a challenging situation. People have to work harder. Defenders have to defend slicker. All those scenarios. So we're playing a game that challenges what we're trying to improve, where we're trying to build the resilience in those players. Okay, it could be a case of our forwards are not working hard enough, or we think that, okay, Shane is not working hard enough at centre half forward. Okay, we're going to play 2 lads on Shane. Saying we're not getting the ball. I'm just 2 lads on me. Find a way out of it. Okay, all of a sudden then he decides, well, you know what? Every time I get the ball here, I'm being killed. I'm going to go to wing forward, pull and leave the middle open, and all of a sudden then they bang in 2 goals and your whole defence is pulled apart. Now Shane is learning to think, and he's learning, okay, maybe I'm not on top of my game, I'm getting double marked here, but you're building his resilience now through your coaching, or it's a case of, lads, the forwards are not working hard enough. I need them to work harder. As a group, I'm putting 8 defenders, 6 forwards. When you're turned over, it's a point or a kick wide, it's at the point, and you can give the forwards hell, and they'll tell you, sure, it's not fair, they have 2 extra defenders. Find a way. So again, we're challenging them, we're testing them, but more importantly, we're building that resilience. Okay, and that comes into your game-based coaching, which is, you know, anyone that's involved in coaching now. A lot of our coaching is game-based, so different scenarios to help build either your team to show that resilience, and it could lead to arguments. It could lead to lads maybe, you know, wrestling on the ground or whatever, which can be a healthy sign that at least they care about the game. So we can use all those to build resilience, and that's just a couple of examples that how we can do it maybe. And I'm sure if we were to open up mics, there'd be loads of different ways, but it gives us an idea of, you know, trying to build those situations. Like, we've really good defenders, but Jesus, our forwards can't get scores. Let's test them in training. How can we test them? You know, yes, you want to give them an opportunity to be successful, and not totally destroy their confidence, but challenge them in a way that they're going to be meeting on game day, or they could be shooting the lights out in training, getting big scores, but they're not, because they're not challenged enough in training. They get challenged in the game and they fall flat on their face. So they are the things we're trying to do and build that through coaching. Okay. So how can coaches help build resilience? Okay, so one of them is what we call reframing. So this is the process of changing the way we view a situation. Examples: instead of a loss as a failure, it's a learning experience. So and I'd be a firm believer of the match should dictate the training. Okay, so as a coach or a member of a coaching team, we go down, we play. Even if we win, what went well? Why did it go well? What didn't go well? Why didn't it go well? Okay, so regardless of the result, we go through that process and say, okay, again, we got no work rate from our midfielder, didn't track back, whatever the case may be, but we're using it as a learning experience, an opportunity to learn, regardless of whether it's a win or a loss. Every game, every time we tug out, it's an opportunity to learn. And sometimes we forget that. And sometimes it can be difficult with a games program to do that, because you might have another game midweek and you mightn't get an opportunity, and then something else doesn't go well. And but it is, from a coach, might jot down one or two things and say, right, come Tuesday night, go back up to the field. These are the things I've learned. These are the things we're going to address. And I'm going to challenge, when I sit down to do my training, I'm going to at least come up with one game scenario that helps me improve on what I felt didn't work on the game. Now you're learning as a coach. Now the team are learning. Okay, so rather than just going back up and saying, should we play backs and forwards again, and forwards shoot the lights out again, and yes, they wouldn't kick it out of the way on Saturday. Now here we are Tuesday, they're kicking great score. Are we going to challenge them? Okay, so a learning experience. Use it as a valuable opportunity to learn from performances. Okay, and view how the winner performed. What did they do better than us? Again, asking the questions of yourself and of your team. Okay, and rather than why a player didn't perform, it can be turned into how can we improve them for the next time. Okay, so having those conversations. And I understand there's coaches there saying, Jesus, if I was to do all this, I'd want to be a full-time over the under-14s. It's making you aware of different situations that you can face. That's all, because you could have 20 young lads and you could come out with training saying, was John Doyle even at training? I get that, because there's so much happening. Maybe you have a parent coming in to give out. Maybe you're arguing with the minor manager. We're supposed to be here now till 8 o'clock and you're coming in my place, and the lad who was supposed to bring the balls is running late, and all those things come into it. And that's reality. As I say, it's grand saying, John Doyle said this, but it's making us aware of situations where we can try and improve, and it's not going to happen every night, but you're aware of it, that we are learning. We're trying to build this team into, when it goes well, why did it go well? Can we challenge that to make it go better? So we're really shooting really well, but can we put pressure on them, and they're shooting well when they're playing against 2 extra defenders? If they can do that in training, there's a fair chance when they come up at 6-on-6 in the game, or even 7-on-6, they're going to be able to perform. Okay, so we're trying to bring all our players along, and we use the reframing process to do that. Okay, you go on there, Shane. Okay, so controlling the controllables. Again, it's something we all get bogged down on. We'll blame the ref, and we'll blame, we're a dry day team, and just if we got them on a fine day, we'd make mincemeat out of them. Okay, totally out of your control. So realizing that there are things that you can 100% control over, there's things that you can influence, and there's things you've no control over at all. So again, it's spending your time and energy dealing with the things you have control and influence over. So if we're looking just at a few examples, your work ethic, okay, you can always control that as a team and as a player. Your body language, okay, do you play when the first ball comes in, and the cornerback comes tearing out with the heads down, and next thing you're shouting, sure, I ran left and should have give it to me right. You're giving out to the midfielder, kicked in the ball. Body language is poor. Can't blame anyone else, only yourself. So body language is vital there for a player, and being coachable. Very, very important. Even if you don't agree with the coach, and you can have a chat, but putting up your hand and saying, you know what, I'll take that on board, and tomorrow I'll try to be better at it. Like that's what we're looking for. So there are things as a player you can control. There are things as a coach you can control. Okay, being planned, being there on time, not losing your head on the line, not shouting and roaring at the referee, not shouting and roaring at the opposition management. Your body language as a coach, all those things, your ability to learn to learn from one day to the next and take things on board, all things you can control. Okay, things you can influence: the referee, your teammates as a player, and the opposition. So again, your body language or your respect towards the referee, no doubt about it, you can control it, or you can influence him. If I'm giving the referee dog's abuse, I'm going to really earn my free, whether you like it or not. Now maybe there's referees on the webinar here that tell you no, that doesn't happen. My experience, when the crosser I am, the more I work for the frees, and I had to have chats with myself. I was gone so contrary, giving out every time as I got on, and now I've started to learn to control that a little bit. Now maybe there's people around, referees around Kildare, tell you maybe wouldn't agree with that, but you can influence the referee by your performance towards him, your teammates, how you encourage, picking a lad up when he's down, realising that I'm playing inside two with Shane Lennon, and I'm after winning a whole lot of balls, and Shane is struggling to get into the game. Can I go over and say, next ball you loop around me and I'll give it to you? Now he's brought into the game. Now they have to watch two of us inside. Okay, and again the opposition. Again, your how you respect the opposition, shouting the ball in their face, clapping them on the back. All this, to me, is a load of rubbish. You're respectful. You go hard for the ball. You go about your business the best you can, and to me, that's what a resilient team and a resilient player looks like. Okay, and no control over the weather, supporters, skill of a teammate. No control over. So no point me shouting, Shane Lennon, sure, he can't kick the ball in. So that's it's not an excuse. That's only an excuse. I have no control over that, but I have control over saying to Shane, look, I'm going to pull tight into that corner, give it to me left hand side. I'm going to jink right, give it to me, and I'll give you 20 yards to put in. Now there's where I've come up with a solution to try get the best out of maybe Shane that's maybe doesn't have the skill level to put it through the eye of a needle onto my chest. Because again, that's totally against what Shane Lennon was as a football, but I'm just using it. Okay. So a couple of ways we'll talk about, and again, I know I'm doing a lot of talking, but we'll have a chat. We'll have a chat near the end. I know this has probably gone a bit longer than we've it's coming up just over the hour or so, but we'll keep it going anyway. But again, feel free to just turn on your mic and jump in at any stage. So help building resilience. So we talk about modelling resilience behaviour. Okay, so a player who's successful is used as a model for your player to learn from. Okay, so again, I use my own scenario here. When I started playing football, first was with the school team, a rural school just out about 5 or 6 miles outside Newbridge called Allen School, and we wore the red jerseys, and my first game for the school was under 10 game in 1987. And the two teams at that time were Cork and Meath. They were the teams on the telly, so we didn't see Kildare on the telly. And of course, Larry Tompkins being from Kildare, he was my favourite player. And the fact that I wore 11 jersey for the school, and he wore 11 jersey, and that was the reason I kicked frees. I started kicking frees because I was Larry Tompkins in the backyard. Okay, and I modelled, and even as I got older, you heard of his work ethic towards training. That was always in the back of my mind as well. There was a reason he was so good. It was because he trained really hard. He trained when others were rested. He was the one. He talked about the hours kicking frees. I learned an awful lot from him, and I remember we got to a Division 8 final in Kildare schools, and I was moved to full forward, and I was disgusted because I didn't have the 11 jersey on my back. So I suppose I was modelling a successful player without even realising it. I learned so much from him that even though I didn't even realise as a player, and maybe us as coaches can say, well, look at who is your favourite. You play wing back. Who is your favourite player? Okay, well, my favourite player is Tomás O'Shea. Why is he? What does he do that you can do? You know, and that can be very, very powerful thing. And if you look at different players, you know, if I look here in Kildare, and it doesn't always transpire, but you know, they talk about Dermot Early playing with Roscommon. He was a fantastic midfielder. Young Dermot probably modelled himself an awful lot of his dad. A fantastic midfielder. You know, look at Dean Rock, free taker for Dublin. His father before him was. So he had a positive role model. Learned an awful lot from him. You know, so it's a good way. So as a coach, you can have that conversation, and it could be just a sheet of paper. You know, lads, giving you this. Have a look at when you go home. Take them up next Tuesday night and have those conversations. You put down Jack McCaffrey. What does he do? You put down, you know, Shane Lennon. What does he do that you like doing? Have a look on YouTube. You know, and then all of a sudden they're modelling themselves on a really good player, and they're learning. So that's one good way. Okay, Shane, fly on. Okay, so attributions of success or failure. So a resilient player attribute their success to those elements that they control or influence. So we mentioned that. Therefore, success is not someone else's responsibility. The same for any poor performance, and we've talked about that, you know. And we all do it, you know. And sometimes, you know, you go home after a match and you'd be hoping your dad would say, "Oh, sure, there's nothing you could do. You wouldn't kick you in the ball." And you go home feeling a little bit better about yourself. Your ego doesn't feel as tarnished as it did when you come in the door. Okay, and we probably need that a little bit too. But when the dust settles, you know, what did you do to influence? How did you forget about everyone else now? What did you do? What could you have done better? And if you can get your players realising that, you know, yes, there is elements that are going to come that are going to control. I just met a faster lad on the day. Okay, what did you do different then? You know, you tried to beat him out, even though you knew he was faster. You tried to beat him out to the ball every time. Did you think anything? Did you bring him out the field? Did you say, I'm going to bring him into the corner now and I'm going to loop off Shane Lennon and hopefully get an odd shot at the goal? You know, so you're building that resilience in your players, and they're taking responsibility for their own performance. Forget about the blame, okay? And players should be encouraged to be the best that they can be, not looking to blame anyone else for a poor performance. They're all self-explanatory. But again, if you can get those players, and I know you can, and I'm looking just at the comments to say, I'm just looking at names here, say Vincent Baldwin. I know Vincent, the team you coach, there's lads there that are great lads to not blame everyone else. No, I'll try better the next day. And there's definitely lads that are saying, yeah, but Vincent, sure, Jesus, I was out in front and they kicked it in behind me, or I was this and I was that, and they look to blame. And that's in everything, okay? And it's being aware of that and saying, okay, what could you have done better? And inevitably they'll say, yeah, but John, no, forget about John for a minute. What can you do better? What did you learn out of that? And having those conversations, that's as good as a great backs and forwards game, or you know, you've learned as much in that in the training session as you would in getting out and working on a fitness session. Okay.
Johnny, we just might get Vincent just to explain his question there.
Sorry, yeah.
Question there in the chat box.
Yeah.
Hello, Johnny. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, Vincent. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, just your thoughts on that. When you're talking about resilience there, you know, taking up teams, like a young team. If you have a young team, a successful team, you know, they're currently winning all the time, that not being tested or challenged and all that. To me, that is setting them up for failure. And you know, just getting your thoughts on things like that there. Like, I believe, you know, the biggest life skill that you can teach kids is that if they overcome you know, a struggle, that they're able to eventually to overcome it, you know.
Yeah.
Things like that there.
Yeah.
instead of, like, mostly you, as you say, you find maybe some of your parents or a lot of the some coaches, some cases there, if they see players, meeting an obstacle, they're there and they're trying to, what they call, clear the pathway for them, instead of, constantly challenging them all the time. Like, for instance, like, as I say, and if you have a young team and there's constantly, what do you call it, winning everything inside the county, how can you challenge them? Do you take them outside the county, come up against better competition? So, this is when you're going through the development phase from 12 to minor, that you're properly challenging them. So, when they come to like a senior championship, or if they go on to development squads, that you're asking them the right questions at that time. Like, it doesn't matter if they lose along the way, but you're challenging them the proper way, and you're asking them all the questions that when it comes in comes to, what do you call it, when it comes to senior, into a championship match there, that they've been asked all the right questions, that they'll have the right answers at that time. And then I suppose the important thing to ensure that does take place is that every club should have a development pathway for to develop the players, and that is done properly, and that every coach agrees with it at each age group, and that players are properly challenged at each age group before they're passed on to that to the following age group. I mean, these all kind of things. What do you think of this?
Yeah, well, look, it's a brilliant question, and it's something when we were putting it together, and we rolled it out at a day in Abbottstown for coaches, and Sean Gannon was from Carlow. His club is Airog in Carlow, who are one of the strongest clubs in Carlow, and his underage success was like that. He was saying they won everything, but then they dipped at senior level because they didn't build that resilience. They won minors, they won 21s, and couldn't make the step up because they didn't have that resilience. Which was, you think you'd love to have that problem, but it is a problem where in other rural clubs you're thinking, Jesus, I'm just trying to keep the damage limitations. If we could get out and they don't beat us by 10 points, we're doing well. So every club has their own challenge, and I think if you've answered a lot of that, Vincent, in asking the question. You certainly bringing them outside the county, lads. You think you're good, and you might have beat St. Pat's at the weekend there by 10 points, but now we're playing Navan O'Mahony's now, and and that's when you'll see, or you're playing Ballyboden. Let's see how you get on now, and so that brings teams back down. The other side of it is, you're going out to the next match. You probably know these teams aren't going well, or we should be all right this evening. So you decide that your full forward, that's your main man, I'm just not going to pick him this evening. I'm not going to say I'm just not going to pick him, and see how he performs. I'm going to look at his body language. Is he encouraging the team? Is he, is he going to come at me? Is his parents going to come at me during the week and say, why didn't you play Sean, or why didn't you play Shane? And all of us, and then maybe take him aside and say, look, I didn't play you, but I noticed that you didn't encourage the team. You're a leader in this team. Just because you weren't on the field, you stopped leading. Now you've gone from from a team player on the field, but you weren't a team player off the field, and we need to be a team player off the field. So you make them aware. You play you mix up the team. You give a lad that maybe is struggling a bit, you give him a full game, or you think that a lad is lining up in the full forward, and I'm going to put him midfield. I'm going to leave him there for the hour, and he'll have to work, or I'm going to put him out there. I'm going to take him off, and he's going to say, "Sure, play me midfield. I've played there before." Then I'm going to explain why. So there's learning happening all the time, and you might still win, which is fine. You'd nearly sometimes maybe be hoping that you wouldn't, but you're learning, and the team is learning, and you're trying to teach them valuable lessons, and that is all you can do as a coach, in my opinion. It comes back to manufacturing or engineering scenarios that's taking players out of their comfort zone, and they still might win, and that's okay, but you're going about it in the right way. And certainly it helps, because, as I say, it's easy for John Doyle to sit here and say, Jesus, you know, you should do this, and you're on the sideline, and maybe parents are very vocal. I had a coach said to me not so long ago, he used to give out about parents dropping their kids at the field and heading off and going for a cup of coffee. He says, it's gone to the stage now, I wish to go back doing that. Just drop them and leave them for the hour, because some of the shit I have to listen to, excuse me, my French, he said it's shocking. He said the parents are doing giving their children no chance. So it's building that resilience, and you can even see it, you know, even now, and we do, it's a natural thing to do now, is to, as you said, Vincent, pave the way to make things smoother for kids. Look at us now when we're homeschooling and people are home with the kids. It's nearly, I think my kids, I'd want Fawcett Circus to arrive every day to try and entertain them. And now I'm gone to the stage, the sun is shining, out you go. And there could be, I have 3 girls and the nose will be pressed against the door, and I said, out you go. And learn to play, we're bored, that's good. Find a way to entertain yourself. You know, because we're now equipped with, here, put on Netflix, here's the iPad, here's that. But, you know, we're paving the way. You know, when you were bored, what did you do? I know you can't go up to your friend's house, or you can't, but you found ways. And I think that's very important. Find a way out of a scenario. Even if the result is successful, so be it, but you've found a way. So I suppose that sort of helps goes some way in answering your question, Vince. But a good question. All right, Shane, okay, so another way coaches can help build resilience, okay, so highly developed technical skills. So players who are exceptionally technically and physically competent are usually more resilient to setbacks, okay? So when a player has experienced a poor performance, those who have high level skills realize creating a successful result is not about reinventing their whole process. Instead, technically competent athletes know what they have to do and recall the times at which they've done it for previous success, to go back to the basics and their basics of their technique, which delivered to that success. So if we look, the example we give here is Dean Rock in the 2017 All-Ireland final, missed a free in the first half that he'd kick 99% of the time, no bother, he fired over. But again, last minute to win the All-Ireland, if you remember, it was Lee Keegan decided to throw the GPS at him, never took a phone call, because he went back. He's honed in on that skill so technically that he knew I miss, but he had that self-belief, but that over practice. So he built that resilience. You know, I've missed an easy free, so what? You know, and we've often heard of the player of, I hope he gets an easy one, then he, you know, gets the first one over, he settles in, and then there is you can't argue with that. But the resilient player, basically that's telling you he doesn't have the resilience built up. If he gets the first one, if he misses the first one, you may take him off. He hasn't built that resilience. And we haven't challenged him enough to build that resilience as coaches. Okay, so if you do end up saying that about a player, really we're failing to build resilience. Okay, so that's an example. So again, the skill, you know, a man might be tight marked for long periods of the game, can't really get into the game, but all he needs is a sniff. Last 2 balls, bang bang, over the bar, we win by a point. Hasn't got a kick of it for an hour of football. Last 10 minutes he takes over, because he has that belief and he has that technical skill that all he needs is a half a yard, and he has that belief in himself. So the technical, highly developed technical skills definitely help build a resilience. Okay, okay, we can fly on there. Okay, so again, I'm just going to give you examples. We won't talk through it because again we're tight on time. So this is back to some of the scenarios maybe, and Vincent talked about as well. So club teams that have won all the way through at the Rees. So this is again Vincent's question. None have made a step up to adult football. So what we do differently? And again, we've talked about it already. So, you know, going elsewhere, taking them, you know, putting the full back, full forward. So he realizes that, you know what, his kicking has to be accurate because he's dependent on other people being accurate and all that sort of stuff. So we put them in situations where they learn and they're met with challenges. Okay, fly on there. So we've covered that. Okay, so a team that's struggling in most games. Okay, so they're being beaten every time. How do we continue to motivate them to come up to the field and choose it? What's the point? We're getting beaten all the time. So again, I just fly through a few things. We can, we can build them with stats. Okay, we're not going to worry about scoring tonight, lads. We're going to worry about shots. Okay, the last 2 games we got 8 shots off. We got 12 shots off. Can we bring those shots to 18 shots tonight? If we do that, we're getting places. We're getting to say, yes, we're beaten. That's okay, but we're improving on that. Can we get 3 blocks in? Okay. Next day, we're going to play a challenge match of the weekend. We might realise, well, as opposed to going and getting a tough challenge match outside the county, we might go and manufacture a challenge match, even though we know we might be a little bit ahead of them. But we tell them that, well, we're going down to play in Navan O'Mahony's. These are a top team in their division, and it'll be a right good challenge match. And we win by a point, lads. We're improving all the time. So all of a sudden, you're giving them a chance to be just to see a little bit of green shoots, see a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, and that sort of can be enough to just motivate them to keep coming. Because none of us, let's be honest, it's not all about winning, but winning is a good feeling. And when we win against the odds, and we mightn't have any silverware, it might be just that match when we're down a couple of players, geez, we're in for a bit of a hiding, and we scrape through in a league match on a Tuesday night. That winning feeling is a great feeling, and we should never lose sight of that fact. It's not worth saying, oh, everyone is great and there's a medal for everyone, and that's not what we're saying. But we're saying is that we can learn as we go. Winning we can learn, losing we can learn, and we're building that resilience. And the teams that are successful, that don't build their resilience, they don't see that long-term path. They don't see that rocky road. Okay, fly on there, Shane. Okay, so a successful team, I suppose, they rotate players. This is when we say about successful team in building resilience. So, and that successful team that Vincent talks about, that have that success. So we'll just fly over them again. They rotate the players, stronger opposition, challenge certain players in different age groups. So again, it could be the lad that's playing brilliant at 16 and he's asked to play with the minors. Yeah, we're happy enough to let him go with the minors, even though we've a important league game. We're saying, look, at this weekend you've under 16 on Friday, minor game on Saturday. You go with the minors this weekend. I'm going to use this opportunity to bring in my number 20. I'm going to give him a game and let him off. You're challenging him at a higher level. You're giving another opportunity, and all of a sudden that player that kicks 9 points in every game, well, someone else is going to have to kick 9 points. It's a bit like, I don't know whether, I love that film Coach Carter, where he comes into the gym and the first 2 lads walk out after giving them a bit of a pep talk, and the man says to him, oh, that's our 2 top scorers from the last 2 seasons. And he says, well, I guess you better find another top 2 scorers. Building resilience gives an opportunity for someone else. Okay, so we can let them off and play at a higher grade. Identify weaknesses and concentrate on improving those areas and taking players out of comfort zone. So that's the team. That's how we maybe some suggestions how we deal with the team that Vincent talked about. That the really successful underage team, and then the team that's maybe struggling. We have to make it fun. There's realistic goal setting, which we talked about. Selecting your challenge in the challenge games. Continue to develop and monitor attitudes and identify improvements and share them with players. So, you got 3 brilliant blocks in as defenders. We kicked, our score on average came up from 40% to 50%. Now we're up at 60%. Now we have to get the shots up, but we're improving. So their goals, their improvements, and we've shared and identified them. So we're building resilience, whether the team is success or whether the team is failure. Okay, Shane. Okay, so sometimes the rocky road success is, and again, we turn on the Sunday game and we listen to maybe players, or we listen to pundits saying, about a natural, and this guy is natural, and Colin Cooper is just a naturally gifted footballer, and David Clifford is just a naturally gifted footballer, and Jack McCaffrey is just naturally gifted. You will find that all these so-called naturally gifted players in any sport have experienced that we think it's a nice smooth surface, everything is great. They've gone the opposite. They've gone to the rocky road. They have loads of challenges along the way. They work the hardest. Again, go back to the Michael Jordan. You know, yes, he had the talent, no doubt about it. He was Rookie of the Year and he was all his, but by God, did he have the work rate? And if it was talent and work rate, he had work rate 10 times more than he had talent. You know, so you will find all these players that we think that the Brollies and these boys think he's natural. They have work rate and work ethic and built huge resilience along the way. You only have to talk to club people that had them, managers that had them, and players themselves. You know, yes, they might have the natural ability of speed that Jack McCaffrey has, but he'll have to come up with another way where his speed doesn't get him out of trouble. Or you might have the flair or the balance that Colin Cooper has. But again, you know, he's met opposition where he's had to mark defenders. He's ended up chasing defenders up the field. You know, they've met those rocky roads. So don't let anybody tell you it's smooth sailing. Everybody, the top players, all have had to build resilience. Some found it easier, but they have been built resilience along the way. And it might have come outside of coaching. It might come from parents. It might come from a coach within the club, or it might come from a school teacher, or, you know, grew up with 4 brothers on a farm. You'll find resilience there very quick, you know. And again, just a couple of examples of resilient players. Throw in Colm O'Neill there, who I think he's done 3 cruciate ligament injuries. One has finished a lot of lads, but again found it somewhere deep down he wanted to play and came back all the time. Again, Henry Shefflin doesn't need any introduction, the most decorated hurler ever, but then didn't feature on any underage teams for Kilkenny, or very few of them all the way up. You know, was just an average hurler, but again, that resilience made him into the player he was. Always, you know, worked hard. And I always remember his interview after he retired. Someone asked him what was his greatest achievement, and we all expected to win 10 All-Stars, to win 10 All-Ireland medals, or 11 All-Stars, or whatever he won. And he said, my biggest achievement is he got the best out of myself. And I thought, what a message for any young hurler of football. He just got the best out of himself. And you can ask for no more than that. And again, Roy Keane, whether we love him or hate him, whether we're Man United or Man City or whoever, talk about resilience. Every obstacle thrown against him, he overcame. Like, writing the clubs in England to say, give me a chance here. I'm waiting, give me a chance. And having that belief and being told time and time again, you're too small. You know, didn't maybe have all the pathway clear. Definitely didn't have the pathway cleared from a home life, lived in working class Cork, where got nothing easy, and went on to be, in my opinion, the greatest Irish soccer player of them all. You know, so loads of examples of the best. All right, and we're just going to throw in this video. This is Stephen Curry, again, a basketballer, plays with the Golden State Warriors. So we just have a quick, and sometimes we hear about, you know, players playing, oh, well, I know he's gone off playing soccer and I'm banning soccer, or I'm banning this. He's playing rugby. If you're playing rugby, play rugby. We don't want to see you. And again, we'll have a look at this and we might change our opinion.
My experience was great because my parents exposed me to different, many different sports as I could growing up. And then around 9, I think 8 or 9, I was playing football, baseball, and basketball kind of all at the same time. And my experience with playing different sports it taught me a little bit more about myself with each sport, because I knew I was better at basketball. I loved to play baseball because my dad played a little bit growing up too. And football was just something my friends did, so I wanted to try it with them. But knowing that I wasn't as good at baseball and football, it challenged me to kind of, you know, gain that confidence, gain that work ethic to get better. Like Zaza was saying, go through some mistakes, fail a couple of times, get knocked down, work on your toughness, have to come back, you know, bounce back the next practice, the next game, whatever it was, whatever the case may be. So it was really cool exposure just to be challenged, because sometimes at a young age you might be better at a certain sport, you feel comfortable in that space and in that zone, and you don't really get to push yourself. You don't really get to test yourself and how you deal with failure, how you deal with success in those sports. And when I got to 13, it was more just a schedule thing, really, to be honest. Figuring out how I could really focus on something year round and really exert enough effort and intensity and mental and physical, time and focus on that particular sport. And for me, my parents said, it doesn't matter what you want to try, just stick to it at that point. And obviously my choice was basketball. I think it was a good one.
I think we can all agree on that one, yeah. And
the rest is history there. But I don't think I would have the confidence and the personality when it comes to as an athlete that I have now without having played multiple sports and really gotten to learn a lot about myself in those experiences.
Okay, so again, we see, and again, anyone that follows basketball will know what a player. I think he's 4 or 5 state championships or national championships, and a brilliant player of the year 3 or 4 times. So, but again, always good at basketball. So he, and it probably was by accident rather than design, but found the challenges in other sports. Again, I be a firm believer of we have a great product in the GAA, football and hurling. We have a brilliant product. And a lot of what I do with the squads is because soccer, we're close to Dublin, there's lads play soccer, and I be there, go and play soccer. Be the best you can be at that. And, if it doesn't work out and you're back with your club and you're performing well, we have a good product that you'll enjoy. And sometimes they do come back and sometimes they don't. But we'll use an opportunity for you to go and learn, and maybe that learning will make you a better player, come in at minor or come in at 21 level. So you can be challenged outside of that. Sometimes I feel, we look at other sports and maybe look at them in a negative way, to say, well, it's my team or no team, and I think we might be doing them an injustice if we do that. Okay, so just to conclude, so emphasis appropriate development, not an early success. So we're building a strong base through delivering or deliberate preparation, the fundamental skills, the robust player, both physically and mentally, and adaptable players. Okay, so again, try things, challenge them. Back to the development squad. You're footballers. You're not a cornerback. You're not a corner forward. You're a footballer. All the things that make a great cornerback make a great corner forward. All the things that make a good midfielder, being able to catch the ball, being able to solo, being able to have an engine, they're important if whatever position you play. So don't have a narrow skill base. Broaden up and develop all aspects of your player. Because you see, and there's loads of examples. You'll see a player and you'll think, at 14, this lad is no more going to make it, and by 18, he could be midfield on your senior team. You just don't know. You have to give him the opportunity to challenge him, play him, start him when he doesn't think he's going to start, take him off when he thinks he's on top of the world, and you're building him for the long-term success. Okay, so, and I suppose the most important thing is a win at all costs culture is not developing the player. Developing the player is for the long-term success. So you can win along the way, no doubt about it, and it's great to win. We all remember the matches we won, going to McDonald's after or whatever the case may be. They're important for your development, but not at all costs. Okay, I think that's our final slide, Shane, if I'm correct. So look at maybe if there's a few questions. I know I've gone on a bit now. We're an hour and a half. So normally we tend to go on. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to come in and just open your mic and we'll have a chat about them. But there's no right and wrong. There's no. I'd love to say here's a blueprint. Do that and you'll be fine.
Folks, just before Johnny goes off the call, just like to thank him for an excellent workshop. I know I've listened to it probably second or third time, but I think you pick up things from all these webinars, and I'd like to thank Johnny for the effort he put in tonight. Excellent listening to it, and I think we all will pick up definitely 4 or 5 different things that you could think about come back into your coaching sessions the next couple of weeks. As I said, like thank everyone for tuning in. If anyone has any questions, you can type them into the chat box, or just switch on your microphone, and I'm sure Johnny will answer any questions. So thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks, Shane, and listen, thanks very much for everyone for tuning in. Apologies, maybe I kept a few. There's probably kids to get to bed and all that sort of thing. So listen, I was delighted to come up. Always have fairly good memories of Loud. A few bad ones along the way as well, and Shane put me to the sword a few times, but we've got over that, and we've had a pint or two to discuss a few issues we had on the field, but we're still good friends. So most important.
Yeah, Johnny, just a question there. How do you get club buy-in to a player development plan?
I suppose, look at, again, depending on the structure on your club, I feel sometimes it's having good people on your committee. So if you have an underage committee, or you have a coaching committee within the club, I think it's important for them to sit down and say, identify, what are we doing here? What do we want? What is success for us? And analyse themselves and the organisation that they represent. And because it can be difficult for a coach, it's fine for Shane Lennon to rock up and say, do this, and people mightn't question Shane because he's played at the highest level and he's a coach. But the question may be you, and sure, he doesn't play feck all football, or whatever the case may be. So if we have a culture within the and goals and a vision and values within our underage section of our club, or our club, and that a parent comes to me and says, that's a lot of rubbish, and I say, well, you need to have a chat with the committee, because these are the parameters I'm given as a committee. So it takes the personal view out of it, that John Doyle is not doing this because he doesn't like Shane Lennon. He's doing this because this is the values of this club, and we are trying to develop those values. And it also gives you onus from a club point of view to come to John Doyle and say, look at, our value in this club is that every player gets an opportunity. Now, you have to play in the last 4 games the same team every time. That goes against the values, the principles, the culture of this club, and it needs to change. And that's not a personal issue, it's the values of the club. So I think that's a very, very important thing for a club, whether it's whatever stage. It can be a subcommittee, it can be an executive, it can be a football committee, or whatever it is. What do you want? And if you can have those conversations, set out those values, and that might be a survey from the club, or whatever the case may be. What does commitment look like? What does every player getting an opportunity look like? Now, you don't want the case of, well, sure, I don't have to train, so I'm going to get a game, because they said everyone's getting a game. Everyone's getting a game once you tick these boxes. So you give us a certain amount of training sessions, you conduct yourself, your body language is good, you're not abusive towards the opposition or referees. Everyone gets a game once you fit in under those parameters. So I suppose that's I think is Paddy, is what we're probably looking at, is getting those club and being accountable. So you can go to a parent and say, look, you're having a go at the under 14 manager, but he's only doing what this club is about. And if you don't feel that that's exactly what the way the club should be, we'll have an AGM and you can come on the committee next January. And I will be very strong on that. Because normally when you look for a person to do a job and commit to something, the ones that give out most are the ones that shy away. So and it's not easy, I get it, but knowing what you want as a club. And you might go back and say, look, we're going to trial this for the first year, and look at that aspect of work was a disaster. That's okay, you've learned. But for me, that's who are we and what do we represent and where do we want? We have these under 10s. What is success for this group? And for me, it's taking those 20 lads and still having them involved at 40, or still having them involved. And you're going to lose one or two, of course you are. But having them, keeping as many along the way, and making sure that they adhere to what the club is about. That's success for me.
Right, folks. I think we'll wrap it up. Just I'll be emailing out the recording of the webinar, so you'll be able to share it with your club people as well. And I'll also share. I think Johnny will have no problem sharing the presentation as well.
Absolutely not.
Thanks very much, folks.
Good stuff. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Johnny.
Thanks, Shane.